Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and in this video I wanted to follow up on the prior promised content regarding a pretty easy way to take out ERT Hammerheads. And if you're unfamiliar with the bounty hunting ladder from Reputation, ERT is basically your extreme risk threat, and is the highest bounty that you can get in the game right now, with a kill value of 20,000 credits, plus whatever else you get from a call to arms, which can end up adding another 5,000 or so depending on the target. If you've been playing recently, you also know that some of the old builds that are capable of killing hammerheads are not necessarily the ideal builds anymore. You have capacitors that limit your ability to keep sustained fire, and the hammerheads have turrets that each have their own capacitor now, which means they also have a much greater ability to keep shooting you than you do with them in a single-seat fighter. Now, there was a change to the way that shields work, though, specifically around recharging, and while the shields seem to have a much better health pool for the hammerhead to start, the regeneration of them has been knocked down to some degree, so you're less dependent on having to keep getting massive sustained fire against larger targets. It's just harder to get them down from the beginning, and they're a lot more deadly to you, so it's a little bit of kind of a, give and take. So while you can get the job done in smaller ships, there is an easy mode. Enter the Eclipse. And another suggestion from a PXP org mate. And yeah, I know, you may say torps can be shot down, or they're too expensive to use, or they're cheap, or really whatever. But a really easy and straightforward way to take them down is with a surprise torpedo attack, which is exactly what the Eclipse is meant to deliver. Now, for this build, you really want to go as silent as possible, which means all A-grade stealth components, which equates to 2 Mirage shields, a Slipstream power plant, 2 Snowblind coolers, and a Spectre quantum drive. Now, with those components and your weapons by default, I think being Badgers, your EM is just under 4,000. But you want to go lower, because the Eclipse isn't going to be tanking much damage and surviving. So the idea here is to be able to get as close as possible, let the torpedoes go, and you get on your way. So for this, you could opt to run ballistics, which in general is a good reason or a good way to bring your EM down, but your size 2 guns, and you only have 2 of them, regardless of what they are, aren't going to do a lot against the hammerhead. So I would actually opt to just turn off your weapons completely, meaning you don't have to pay for different guns, which will save you a couple hundred EM points. Even though the stealth shields are pretty damn quiet, I also opt to turn those off for another few hundred points of EM savings, meaning you can get pretty damn close to them without being seen, and that's the whole point of what we're doing. You could get by with using just normal civilian shields or whatever. If you're turning them off, it doesn't really matter. But I do like having the ability to flip shields on should I need them, just because you're pretty fragile without anything protecting you. Now, operationally, it's pretty important to know how you're going to be vulnerable. So you don't just want to try and do a torp flyby like you might do in a Retaliator that has many more hit points and expect to survive. Because once you're spotted, it's not going to take much to take you out, especially with the shields off. And in these missions, you generally have the hammerhead being covered by 2 to 4 ships, depending on the RNG of that encounter. Now, you'll pick up the hammerhead from a long ways out, so make your way in as quickly as possible, but make that speed to a point to where you're going to be able to cut it down, and you're not getting closer than 3,500 meters to the hammerhead. You might be able to get a little bit closer than that, but with the other ships in the AO, it doesn't really seem to be wise to push your luck and get closer, where I don't think there's much of a return on investment in getting kind of frisky there. I would say that when you get a full lock on the hammerhead in these bounty missions, the torp hit success rate is probably about 80% if you deliver it in the right range, which is again about 3,500 to 4,000 meters. The good news, if you allow your lock to calibrate entirely in operator mode, your chances of hitting are strong, and 1 torpedo will take out the hammerhead the majority of the time. To the earlier point, torpedoes are expensive, and rearming 3 torpedoes on an Eclipse is going to cost you about 10,000 credits. But to the earlier credits earned conversation, you're earning a minimum of 60,000 credits, pushing closer to 75,000 credits when you get the call to arms for the kills, so your net earnings would be about 50 to 65,000 credits, which is pretty damn good earnings, all things considered. Now, if you want to go a little further and say that the 80% success rate eats into that, fine. 1 in 5 of your targets won't die. So you get, only 8 kills out of your 9 torpedoes. So you could say that's 160,000 credits earned for 8 kills and 30,000 for spent on rearming, which nets you about 130,000 in credits, which is, again, good money. Now, considering these targets pop up one after another, it is a sustainable model to make money in the current state. Now, we also don't know if this is intended balance. one size 9 torpedo killing a hammerhead with full shields, but regardless of intended state, the current state is what you balance towards, and the good news is that this is a good way to make money right now. That's pretty low risk, and flying in unseen and being able to take out a target of this size by using good strategy is fun. And while some may say it's not as rewarding as battling for minutes, what are you going to do? That's the other point, though, there too, is the return on investment of your time. The time to get positioned and get the kill is low, compared to duking it out for an extended period of time, meaning you can get on to the next mission and get out with money, and that turnaround is quick, thus you have a nice ROI while having a relatively low risk. So there you have it. It's a clean, interesting way to kill some of the harder targets in the game. It makes you good money as well. If you have questions, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the bigger conversation regarding capacitors and ship seats that impacts a lot of ship recommendations and fleet loadouts, because it's an interesting topic. Otherwise, have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.